Okay, welcome everybody. We are officially behind the lights, the art and craft of cinematography.
I thought you were going to say we're behind schedule already.
No, I was just jumping right into it.
Guys, we got to finish the setup really quick.
Yeah. Before we begin, I would love to give a shout out to our sponsors of this panel, xoTO in the city of Toronto. Yes, thank you so much. We've had the pleasure of working with xoTO this fall and this winter with some of their co-op students. One of them, Ryan Gordon, helped us produce what is now a podcast, which is a lot of our industry conversations just like this that now exist in podcast land for everybody to listen to. So make sure you check those out. Streaming now on Spotify and Apple Music and everywhere you get your podcasts. And yes. So we're here forcing our panel of cinematographers to step in front of the camera today. I can't believe we got 4 of them. Thank you so much. And how lucky are we to have Warren Sonoda, filmmaker and DGC national president extraordinaire. He took the time out of his very busy schedule.
And Jen's husband.
He's my husband, so that's why he couldn't say no. Yes. No, he was so excited to put this panel together, and he took the time out of his very busy schedule. He just finished a show called The Trades, now streaming season 2 on Crave TV. So we had time to do this panel and refresh everyone's water all day long. Thank you, Warren. You're the best. So I'll give you the mic. How about that?
Thank you, Jen. And excellent panel day today. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for all the people that have been here from the start, because it's been an action-packed day here. And thank you all for joining us. I've wanted to talk to many of you again and talk to you about all the things that you've been doing. Rico, Moran. You have your film. It is in the festival, His Father's Son, directed by Milad Morafi, and that is on Thursday at 6 p.m. But I was just saying in the preamble that Chandler Levesque's I Like Movies is one of my all-time faves, and you did a superb job lensing that, so excellent. Rico Moran is with us. Gayle Yee, Emmy award-winning cinematographer of Late Bloomer, hit TV show, Bria Mack Gets a Life, which should be Bria Mack Gets a second, third, and fourth, and fifth season. Sasha Lee Henry, phenomenal show. Shelved by A.Q. Farrell, love that. And Sukian's new TIFF Top 10, Paying for It, which I've yet to see, but hope to see it soon. And we shared the floor in Odd Squad together, which is awesome. Yes. Sammy and Aya, Coroner, Sullivan's Crossing, The Way Home, Utopia Falls, which we did together. Really excited to see the new Diener 89 movie. That's out now, right, Sammy? Is that, yeah? Yes, and like a little music video called I Started From the Bottom, and now we're here, yo. And Sammy and I did a little tiny movie called Cooper's Camera, which was not a TIFF Top 10 movie. But afterwards, in 2023, the Globe and Mail heralded as one of the 23 best Canadian comedies ever made. Plugging our own work, Sammy, but... and continuing memory lane, Brendan Stacy of Cross, Painkiller, Rabbit Hole, Clarice, Titans, films like Small Town Murder Songs, which I always include because it's one of my favorites, and Stockholm, Still Mine, and the comedy gold effort, Good Effort, Ham and Cheese, our first film together. And joining us at the end of this discussion, David Muscat, who's the senior colorist from Company 3. Some of us know it as Deluxe. Used to be Deluxe, but Company 3 does so many phenomenal films and TV shows. We're going to talk a little bit of color grading after we talk to our cinematographers here. I'm Warren. I'll be here with you. Think of some questions that we're going to have. So the Cheers and Chats, the CFF Cheers and Chats format is very informal. It's here so we can sit around and discuss things. The one thing that we do want to talk about is process, journey, and how to break in stories. So I'm going to start with you, Rico. How did it start, and how did it get from then to movies like I Like Movies and having films in the CFF? Where did it all begin for you?
I mean, for me, I guess like my relationship with Milad and with Chandler, I guess they both started just as kind of a personal relationship. We kind of got connected through some mutual contacts, and once we decided to go forward with the film, just started trying to get on the same page, whether that's through references or just like hanging out in a way of just like trying to understand each other creatively. I feel like that's, I guess, just an important part of my prep process, is just trying to kind of feel like I can understand someone, the common ground that we're going to be spending a few months together, almost every day of the week, all day, every day. So like, we'd better be able to kind of like communicate effectively, and kind of, even if our taste isn't like absolutely laser aligned, like we should be able to understand each other and where we're coming from, and how to kind of like get on the same page.
And then from the crew side, did you start fully formed as a cinematographer? How did you get into DPing?
I started. I guess I started in Toronto working in the photography industry. Stills, yeah. So I had kind of like set my sights on being like a commercial and portrait photographer. And then like, I don't know, 2014, 2015, I worked on a friend's short film, and just like fell in love with film. And that was like, just, I think seeing the kind of like teamwork aspect of it, and just the fact that like everyone in their own kind of department was an expert of their own domain, and those people all working together made this beautiful thing. That film ended up going to Cannes, and It was just like, like a dreamy experience.
It's very solo. It's very
exactly. It's all about the photographer. That's the person who everyone's working for, whereas like film feels like you're working together. So then I started camera assisted for a few years, and then I think about 6 years ago started DPing exclusively.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So an AC background, so you know what they go through, and you give them the time they need to get their marks and everything. Phenomenal. So Gayle, your journey from where you start, how did you get into it, to being on the stage at the Emmy Awards, accepting the hardware?
I was not on stage.
Oh.
Because the microphone wasn't on. Okay. I was not on stage because it was lockdown at the time. My journey.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. Yeah, okay.
My journey. So it's everything propelled for me when my parents got me a webcam as a teen, and I would like lip sync a lot into the webcam. I would make like bad music videos and like use the heart transition.
So you're an actor?
Basically an actor that used a lot of heart transitions. But really, I think I fell into film because I just enjoyed making it. Like, I didn't grow up really watching a lot of movies. I watched more music videos. And the other sort of point I would look at in my life in terms of propelling me towards filmmaking was the Destiny's Child Lose My Breath music video. There's a dance-off between two Destiny's Childs, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, like VFX. And so, anyways, through high school, I did co-op at Rogers TV, did photography.
Did you do your own version of the Destiny's Child?
I can't answer that. There are cameras rolling. But all is to say, I'm very lucky to have known what I wanted to do very early on in my life, and I think that's such a huge privilege. A lot of folks aren't able to do that. That's not to say you can't get into filmmaking, but I was very fortunate that way. Went to Sheridan College, where I wanted to be an editor. Oh, we got some Sheridan alumni. Okay, very good, very good. I wanted to be an editor, but then I realized I didn't want to be in an editing room for that long.
I didn't know you have a background in editing.
Do.
It makes a lot of sense, though, the way you lens and you can decide, oh, okay, maybe we don't need this right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, I was like, I'd rather be on set for 12 hours versus 6 hours in a dark room. And well, I think a lot of it is that I work really well with limitations, like, kind of working under that pressure, and that adrenaline is probably more my speed. But certainly, of course, coming from editing informed cinematography, so I'm fortunate enough to have worn a lot of different hats to land where I am now, and then had a short stint in corporate video, which was fantastic. Learned a lot of skills through there, and then at some point I just sort of made the full leap and became a freelance DP. And Odd Squad was the big breakout show for me, and I was lucky enough to have someone like Warren to trust me. It was like literally my first big show. I was 24, 25 at the time.
I was 26, so
you were
checks
about 26 and a half. I mean, I think through that process, it was such a boot camp working with kids, right? You don't have overtime.
Kids, gags, stunts, special effects, every episode.
That's right, four-hander, etc. So I think that really helped me be an efficient DP. And since then, I've done stuff with adults. I think sometimes the industry pigeonholes you into certain things, and I was kind of stuck in kids' TV for a while. But I think once I knew how to reframe that into different experiences, I was able to work on some other great stuff. So.
Well, I think a lot of us start in children's TV and young adult because they take the biggest risks. They'll bring in new directors, new DPs, new crew, and we level up and we learn so much because if you can do it with an 8-year-old in 8 hours, you can master everything else. So it was a lot of fun. Sammy and Brendan, the three of us have been intertwined our entire career. But Sammy, talk about coming up, and maybe the music video side, because we between you and Brendan and Jeremy Benning, you probably shot 30 or 40 videos each of mine, and it was such a foundational thing. But how did you start, and how did you get to where you are now?
Well, I mean, it's appropriate, I think, if I start talking about you first. I think.
Well, no, it was like horror and RT.
No, it's perfect. Next. It's true. I mean, I was a kid going to school in Ottawa in the suburbs, and I was ultimately very bored and kind of wanted to get as far away from here as possible. And at the time, going to film school in media wasn't really a thing. I discovered Ryerson, and I was always very visual, and so I was like, okay, well, this is something I'm just going to probably learn myself from my parents. So I decided when I was year of high school that was what I was going to do. And I magically read an article actually about a filmmaker in Toronto by the name of Warren Sonoda, who was plugging away making music videos at a very young age and living his dream. It was 17-year-old me who wrote him a letter one day.
Oh my God, you did write me a letter.
Yeah, you don't remember this?
No, I do. I've actually used that in a master class, but I haven't thought about it in years.
And about 3 months later, I got phone call. I was like, we'll just pick Warren Sonoda. I read my letter and wanted to encourage me. And that kind of became my impetus. But when I went to film school, I thought I was going to be a director because I didn't have any idea what directors did or cinematographers did. I just knew I wanted to make movies and pictures, and I got there, and it was very expensive to shoot film in those days. That's dating myself a little bit. My film program, when we shot film, so you had to buy 100 feet of film, you had to process it, you had to edit it on a bench, it took forever.
Short ends.
And my classmates, we'd shoot each other's films, so they all wanted to be directors too, so they kept screwing up my films like they were supposed to. These were all very expensive mistakes for somebody who wanted money, and so I was sad. So I started shooting my own films. I was like, this is much better because I can see the images. And then I realized that the thing that I actually was really interested in was cinematography, not directing. I was, they're two components of the same thing, but the visual component of creating the image was the thing I was the most interested in. And so after that, I just kept shooting. People kept asking me to shoot their films. By the time I was done my 4th year, I was like anemic and exhausted, but I shot like 7 films that year. And then I just got out of school and it was like, just work as an electric, do some assisting, whatever I could.
Who are you gaffing for? Who is the DP that you normally work?
Oh, I mean, I didn't gaff a lot. I gaffed for a lot of people, like on the lower budget stuff, but most of the time I was like lamp bot.
Right.
On commercials, music videos. And then it got to the point where I was bidding on the same jobs that I would just work enough that I could go work for free, shoot short films, shoot indie stuff, making money, just enough money, teching to pay the rent and whatever. And then it got to the point where like I was, bidding on the same jobs. I was also getting called out to go to like work as a technician. So it was kind of a cool moment. And eventually I just, made the leap, and music videos were really wonderful because they were hard work, but they allowed me to sort of make that transition, and forever grateful for them. I still shoot, and I don't shoot very often.
That's the thing. There's not a lot of industry left.
But it was a great.
There used to be money in it, where
and fun.
labels would put money on much music, much back the wall.
So I think that's where I'm going to stop.
Okay, so AC, editor, Lampot, gaffer. You did gaff.
Yeah.
Then let's call it Delight, very important. Brendan, your story, your journey.
There's a lot of overlap. I'm also realizing this is Warren Snow, this is your life moment.
I mean, I got to ask the people to come on.
I did all of those things. I think I never edited. But Blackhawk was obviously hugely influential to a ton of cinematographers are working now.
Blackhawk was a rascal pirate company that did music videos in the 90s.
It was complete. Yeah. It was
Revolver had all the beer money, and we had nothing.
Which was great. Which is what made it great, because I had only PA'd one summer in commercials, which were really buttoned down, and I had my place, and it was a lot of giving people coffee and not doing anything, and I wanted to be on set. I didn't want to be removed from the process of filmmaking. And then I came back after I finished school. Someone I met was going to work on a music video of Blackhawk, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, you can just work for free." And I was like, okay, I'm in. And I did one day for free, and on my first day, they had me touching things and doing stuff and learning what things were. And then at the end of the day, they're like, "Good work. You want to come back tomorrow? We'll pay you $100." And
That's better than free.
This is the greatest day in my life. And I spent 6 months there, every day. They were doing so many music videos at that time that once you were in, if you were on that roster of PAs, you would just work on we were doing 3, 4, 5 music videos a week sometimes, one after another. And sometimes a grip wouldn't show up, and you would just get promoted. They'd be like, "You're a grip now today." And then sometimes you'd be in lighting, sometimes you'd be in, and you kind of got a chance to try everything.
Mostly gaffing, though, right?
I wound up being, but I started in camera, actually. I went into camera for a while.
You did?
I was in AC for a while, and I did outside of Blackhawk some stuff, some commercials, and I actually did some long form stuff, and then realized I actually wasn't learning. I realized at that point I think I wanted to be a DP, and I realized I wasn't learning the stuff I wanted to learn about that job from being in a tent loading mags, which is what we were doing at the time. You were just in a truck with your hands in a bag, and someone would hand you a thing, and you'd hand it back, and it was like assembling widgets. You had no connection to what was going on and then I actually worked as a grip for a while, and I was doing a gripping job with someone, a key he was a gaffer and a key grip. It was a Paco.
Oh, Paco.
Yeah. And we showed up at the job, and he's like, "I didn't tell you we're sparking today. You're cool being the best guy electric, right?" I was like, I've never been an electric before." He's like, "Okay, sure." And he showed me he just walked me through this is what this is. This is. And by the end of the day, he taught me how to tie in. He taught me it was the old day. It was a bit the sort of Wild West. And then I wound up in lighting. Yeah, I became a gaffer, and then around the time of Blackhawk, there was this guy, Warren Sonoda, who was doing lots of music videos. And once you kind of got a chance there, and that was the way it worked, because that was kind of what was great about the fact that there was no money, is that everybody's willing to take a chance on someone for one job, and if you made it through, then you maybe got another one, and then suddenly you were doing that, and you had a real, so, but they also, everybody talked, and everybody supported each other, and my first job was actually with Harv. That was my first job shooting, and I think you were my second. I think you were like, "Hey, what's up, Stacy Kid is it?" And then he's like, "Oh, the film was exposed, I guess, if you can see." And then then your name gets passed on to someone else, and suddenly that's what you do for a living. Now I'm a DP. It was very different in the era of film than it is now.
Yes.
Both for better and for worse. The thing about film, which is not so relevant now, but that happened in that era, was that directors would only trust so many people with film, because it was a magic sort of process that nobody understood, because most people who didn't do that job didn't know what happened to make it turn into an image inside the box. And so you had to prove that you understood it in order to get jobs. And then once you'd proven it, you got a lot of jobs, and you were like in that sort of, so there was a bit of like a barrier to get into that job, that you had to prove that you understood the process of aside from like your understanding of like representing something visually and story and lighting and all those things, like all the important things that we still care about, there was this other sort of weird barrier that you had to prove you understood, and that you wouldn't like ruin their project by completely underexposing it and having nothing. And then we had actually a joke back then, which was like in a music video, like you actually had the opportunity to try things you wouldn't try in long form, because like worst case scenario, if everything went badly, you could just cut to the drummer.
Cut to the drummer.
Yeah. So we actually, like, people with music videos got a chance to try more things and push process and like, try and expose the numbers, but see how far you can push stocks and learn how everything worked really well, because the stakes are very low.
I probably whispered in Sammy's and Brendan's ear sometimes, like, "You got to move on. I'm going to cut to the drummer."
I said a lot.
One of the reasons why I asked how you all started in terms of being on a crew or finding your way to the DP position is xoTO. One of their mandates is helping people break into the film industry. And I think it's important to just reiterate, we all start somewhere. Very short anecdote, my Black Walk anecdote was I actually PA'd for one weekend, and I think Dylan McLeod and Marcus Ellig were shooting, and Jeff Renfro, Stephen Scott, somebody else was directing. We did 3 videos in 2 days, and I was hired as a PA because there was a mistake and they didn't have a PA. I had just directed my first video with Dylan McLeod, who shot it, and I was trying to get a color grading bargain at Spot. Actually, whatever Spot. The company. Lab, Spot Film and Television Lab. But I showed up to PA, and I was the worst PA that weekend because I was just not built for that. I had never PA'd. I kind of showed up at Ryerson as a director, and then I failed twice at Ryerson, so I don't even know if I was very good at that. But because I was the world's worst PA, after I finished that weekend, the producer, Dave Fowler, came up to me and said, "Hey, I just heard you shot a music video with Dylan." So Dylan was my bona fide. Dylan was 4th year Ryerson, I was 1st year Ryerson, and he's gone on to do, amazing work. The Boys, and he does all these top-tier TV shows. But at the time, he was my in at Black Walk, and I guess he vouched for me. And then David Fowler said, "Go home, have a shower," because this is now Monday morning. We're wrapping out. I'm wrapping up Joy Cable just because I'm a PA. And he said, "Go home, have a shower, come in, and you can direct for us." And I think I was 23 or 24 years old, and that's how it started. So
I've heard this story about what a bad PA you were from other people.
I was really bad. I was so bad. So sometimes it pays for that. Process stories. One thing that I always wanted to have a conversation about with 4 amazing DPs is, how do you interpret a director's blocking? This is the art side of things. You can talk about anecdotes from your films or your TV work, but I have an idea of how directors want the blocking to be communicated, but how do you interpret it?
I mean, I think it's a process like all of the rest of it, and I think that, like we say about so many things, there's the prep work, there's how you think it goes in the rehearsals or whatever, and then there's how you shoot it. So I think it's like, it always feels really good to sit with the blocking. I mean, obviously we don't always have time to do a full private blocking with the actors and the director, but I feel like that's when, just like forgetting about any camera, any lighting, and making sure it feels natural. I feel like that's, like, it always has to be about, like, does this make sense for the characters? And I think that, I guess that's, and standing in different places, trying to see, like, how, and I mean, so many times we're also crunched for time. So, like, how can we do this in fewer setups? How can we do this in a way that is interesting? And, like, maybe after, like, figuring out, does it feel good? how can we make it interesting via like where's the camera placed, or like could we have this person like picking up something from the other side of the room or something, or like what is going to motivate the scene to move us forward, and like what is the point of this scene. I feel like that's just kind of the
when you're watching, when the blocking is revealed to you, are you thinking about camera angles, or are you just watching the movement first?
I think I try to just think about the movement first. Like I mean there's always somewhere where I'll place myself, because I generally, the windows are here, it's going to look better if it's backlit. Yeah. Like I'm not going to stand in front of the windows because it's not going to be good. But I think generally, like trying to watch it through once clean, and then I don't know, taking out Artemis or something and starting to try to kind of like figure out like, okay, if this starts here, goes here, like what kind of lenses work, what kind of like angles work, how can we, again, just like make it efficient. Yeah.
Excellent. Gayle, your process.
I think Rico nailed it. I think I would say pretty much all the same things. I think the thing I would add is that, I think we're kind of talking about blocking on the day, and I think, I like to talk about blocking as early as possible. So, I mean, there's an emphasis on location scouting. I like to spend hours in a space if we're allowed to, and really walk through it with the director. There's less people on set. There's less pressure to kind of like have a general idea. And then, also taking Artemis shots so that the crew knows what's sort of our dead zone, if you will. And then on the day, of course, things can totally change, right? Then you have your actual actors. They might feel a certain way about a certain beat, and that's okay. I think, my experience in documentary has also allowed me to be a little bit more flexible when it comes to those kinds of things. But I think exactly what Rico said in terms of being on set and that process. It's really about seeing the movement first. And then I guess I'll add an anecdote that I learned from Sheridan College again, which is Belarus was ingrained in my head. I don't know if the Sheridan alumni here have also heard that term Belarus, but the idea that you block, light, rehearse, and then you shoot. Right. So I'm not really thinking about the lights right away. I'm thinking about...
Or blurs.
Blurs. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's sort of how I interpret blocking.
So you say dead zone. Why is it important to understand what the dead zone is as a director or a DP telling the director, there's a dead zone here?
Yes, sure. So a dead zone, which sounds really daunting as I say it again, which just means like what area of a room are we not going to see? So that informs everyone on the crew, like, okay, I'm going to put all the cases over there because we're never going to see it based on these storyboards. That's sort of what I mean by dead zone. Or, Video Village could be there and monitors, etc.
Because a lot of times when you do your tech scout or your location scouts, all the crew really wants to know is where are going to put the shit. Like, where am I going to put my trucks?
The creative is kind of lost during the tech scout.
But that's one thing, though, I do want to ask you is the difference between sort of episodic blocking and movies. Because on episodes, I never really had access to you on Odd Squad because you're on the floor all the time.
Yeah. With television, I mean, I'll take a step back and just say that, like, usually directors are the guest, right? I'll use Odd Squad as an example, which is a pretty extreme example because we had like 15 directors per season. And so, I would be prepping obviously with my first month with 1 or 2 directors if I'm lucky, but then all throughout I'm like giving up lunches or weekends to make sure that the other folks are, empowered for their episodes, but I don't have the luxury of, weeks ahead of time unless it's an alternating DP situation. I think the other element that makes episodic television different from, other narrative stuff is the idea of 2 cameras, potentially 3 cameras, which happens more often in episodic than it does in a feature setting. So I do think when it comes to blocking for television, I am a little more cognizant of like obviously the second camera and how that's going to work. So you just have more to consider when it comes to the blocking when it pertains to episodic television, I think.
Thanks, Gayle. Sammy, your interpretation of blocking, and maybe are there things that you like to see directors do, and are there things that concern you when things happen?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, everything that you guys said already is pretty key. I think like what I enjoy doing, if you have the time, is to kind of do like a beat breakdown of the scene, which I think is really important. I think even when you have like it seems to be like you have more money, you have more problems, and you're still short on time. You still don't have time to do everything you want to do. So I think it's really valuable to break down every scene that you can. That's important that like there's some scenes you can kind of you know what to do, right? Like I work with a director who's just like, we're grown-ups, we know what to do here. Like working with people who are confident gives you a certain amount of luxury to know that you're going to see a blocking, you're going to know how to tell the story, and you're going to move towards that goal. But you work with all different kinds of directors and see things differently. But one of the things I think to know when you get in trouble, when something unforeseen happens during the day, you thought you were going to have 3 hours to shoot that scene, you've got an hour now. The things that help you are knowing the beats, because then you can really simplify the coverage that you need to get when it starts to hit the fan. And I think that's an important thing. And it also helps you have an intention in the scene where you're not just kind of running around covering everything. You're covering things with intention and purpose, and it's moving the story forward. And I suppose, like for me, like I do have a lot of conceits. I'm a cinematographer. Like I like windows. I like these sorts of things. But also, what kind of a story are you telling? Like, is it a thriller? Is it a mystery? The shots the blocking and the shots need to tell that specific story in a way that, like, you may want to look over there, but you may not want to look over there till much later because something's going to be revealed over there. So for me, it's very story driven. It's about getting into the story first, knowing what each scene is about, and then when the blocking is presenting itself, when you make changes, it's very, you can pivot a little bit more clearly because the actors understand why you're asking them to make a change. That when the director does that, and when the DP is saying, like, hey, like, look, maybe we don't shoot in that direction, even though it
save us a couple hours if we don't look this way.
Well, that too. Then there's also, yes, absolutely. Like, I'm going to be fighting the sun all day if we do that, but I can, control it from inside if we look this way, and this will be a 1 hour thing instead of a 3 hour thing, etc. Like, so, yeah. I mean, I would say that for me, it's always story driven, and of course, story is driven by the characters and all of those things. So it's a little. I think I just sort of hodgepodged everything you guys just said, anyways. So.
One thing I really do like, one thing I learned on Utopia Falls was we would build in close-ups within the shot. So we'd have a master on a wide, but then you would move the camera to get a little closer in geography, but also could give you the sort of medium close-up on a character without having to blow another setup just for that.
Yeah, I think that was like right around the time when we started to use, or I mean, lots of people did. I guess that was like, was it 2019? Yeah.
No, before that.
No, it was because it was. Yeah, I think it was 2019.
Something like that.
Anyways, we were starting to use the Ronin a lot. I think that was like my second show that I'd done where we had a Ronin on the dolly, and we were using that to sort of simplify and we started using headsets. So this was kind of new to me, but I fell in love with it, and I keep that process now where you could be talking to the operators, and you could be sitting with the director, and you could be like, okay, guys, like squeeze in a little bit, like during the take, and you could build in a dolly move because we'd have the Ronin and the stabilizer, and we'd be on, studio floor, so we could just all of a sudden turn a static shot into a dolly shot, and I mean, on shows like that, like it's always nice to be like, okay, you light your wide, then you light your mediums, then you light your close-ups, but a lot of the shows that I've done, I'm trying to light the wide so that I have to do as little to clean up the faces as possible, because we just don't always have time to go in and take
close up. Like
I'll take the time if I can have it, but it's, sometimes it's a luxury to be able to shoot out the same line and keep cleaning up the close-ups every time you go in and go in and go in. So the shows, like, I think we were shooting hour-long episodes in 6.5 days. So it was tight. It was a squeeze, but I mean I had a lot of fun making that show and working with you, and it was really rewarding, and I'm really proud of the work. So it's like it's good training.
Brendan, maybe if you can just pull back the veil on, like, maybe a bigger show like Titans, when it comes to, like, what's a setup on Titans like when you walk into a room and you have to shoot something? Can you just walk us through how you interpret the director's blocking?
I think every project, Titans is an interesting example, but every project I try and sort of like make it its own thing and do what's right for the project. But on a thing like that, you have like a lot of directors coming in who all are coming from. They're all like generally pretty experienced, and they're all kind of rock stars, and they all want to do their own thing a little bit. and then you have on the side the showrunner saying, "Don't let them fuck up our show," and maintain the look, hold the look, and then they're trying to do things so. That's a weird one because you are trying to respect the director and do what they're looking for, but at the same time hold on to the feeling of that show had it's a style, it's a very sort of specific stylized show, and it had a thing that so it's a weird one. But even within the world of that show, we had directors who would try and put tape on the floor and say we're gonna block without the actors, and then the actors would invariably come in and be like, I'm not standing there, I'm gonna be over there.
It's insane.
But you find those people in every that happens. I mean, I just did a movie with a director that wanted to block with second team all the time, and the sort of first team were cool with it. They're like, yeah, sure, we don't care. Just tell us where to stand. And they would come in and be like, yeah, here, okay, good, and that's my spot. And I've also worked on things where on Painkiller, marks were not allowed ever, and you were never allowed to tell an actor where to stand. It was Pete Berg does not believe in any contrivance. You cannot tell anyone where to go, and you have to shoot wherever. Even if they leave the set and go down the hall and go outside and get in their car, you follow them and you get in the car and you drive with them. I am not kidding.
That's where the ACs make their money.
That happens all the time on that sort of. So it's a very different thing. But on Titans, was one of my favorite experiences. One of my favorite directors on that was Akiva, who was actually he was the showrunner and the creator, and he did a few episodes, and I did an episode with him both seasons that I was on it, and he was not that interested in blocking. He was really focused on acting, and he would say, on this line, I need to be in a close-up, and when they're here, I want to see them all in a group, all at the same time, and we should probably establish a room at some point, but I don't care what happens in the middle. So let's see what they do, and you can adjust them or whatever, and then just make sure you get in on her face when she says this, and then make sure and the rest of it, he was you just do your thing. I don't care. You direct the photography, which is actually the name of our job, and not that many directors, there are two different, very different kinds of directors. There are directors who are interested in actors and story, and there are directors who are also interested in visual storytelling and that sort of side of filmmaking, and they're not mutually exclusive or there's a lot of crossover, but on the opposite ends of the spectrum, there are those two kinds of directors, and everyone sort of falls somewhere in the middle, and you kind of have to navigate. I feel the way you approach a blocking is dependent almost entirely on how that director sees their role and your relationship, and you kind of just have to take their lead and figure it out. But I definitely worked with the stand on tape and the don't tell the actors where to go people, and you just have to figure out how to make that work. Painkiller is an interesting example because I knew that was the case with him before we started, and we actually prepped for 2 months. The designer and I prepped for 2 months before he got there because we knew that was the case, and I was I need to
practicals and
everything's built in, or we'd find locations that had windows in the right place, and then because you can't tell them where to go, I had the most amazing collaborative designer who was I get it, we're gonna figure it out. We would dress the room so the most logical place for them to go would be in perfect side light.
Right.
But if they decided not to, then that would
and everything else had a plant or something that they couldn't see.
But we would always dress things so it seemed accidental that they would just wind up going to the right. But then they would just sometimes not.
You and Sammy just said something about staying on the line. Can you just explain what that means in terms of the access? Just for filmmakers to understand.
Yeah, it's just funny in the context of that story because you were not allowed to mention the line ever. It was
we'll
completely
back up to when you don't have any time and you want to be efficient and you
So everyone understands the axis. Yeah, exactly. So if you want to avoid having to shoot, so shooting down the line, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Shooting down the line is just a way to avoid having 1,000
So
eye
I'm
lines.
talking to you. There's an over on me to you.
Instead of if we're in a circle.
No, that's not good.
But if we're in a circle, if 5 people are talking, instead of having it be 5 different eye lines, if you want to break it down into 2, one line, you make it a 3-on-2, and then those people's coverage on one side and these 2 are on the other, and then you can basically still do it it's a one-on-one conversation, and you just keep your camera on the same side of the line the whole time, and you can kind of like, you wind up sometimes needing to get another.
A little aside.
But if you shoot down the line, you stay on the same side all the time, and you don't, if you're shooting this way, you don't put yourself in a situation where you have to then jump and do the other.
And you triangulation is hard. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah.
But say on a TV show like Bria and even Late Bloomer, you don't have the time, or Hot Squad.
But I will say it's a useful tool when you're shooting TV quickly and you have to get through a lot of pages in a day. But it's like not the kind of thing. If you had time and you wanted to, and I'm not that this is separate from money, it's just a time thing. But if you don't have to do that, it's preferable. It's a thing you do when you're in trouble and you need to get through your day and shoot like a ton of coverage, and you can, with one lighting setup, get like a million pieces and all the eye lines, and these people are all looking camera right, and then these people are all looking camera left, and then we don't have to worry about, she was looking from the, it's very simple. But yeah, like you were saying, if someone can walk from that wide into a close-up on the other side and start a new axis, and like you were saying, like if you break down the scene into like what the emotional beats are, it's like, at this moment everything has changed, and now we want to get out of this coverage and get into a new thing, and we start a new line and we start a new piece of coverage. Like that's way more interesting, but it does just come down to time.
Yeah. Start thinking about questions. I have pulled the time card. We're going to go a little bit over because we're going to bring up Dave very shortly. Last question to the group, though. Because we do want to talk about team building and breaking in. How do you build your team, and what's the best way to break into a DP's team, to as a gaffer, as an AC, as an electric, what have you?
I mean, I think personally, I'm lucky to work mostly in commercial, so I feel like most of the people who I bring onto narrative projects are in some way related to the commercial teams. I guess it's like, especially on some kind of long form project, again, it is so much about the relationship. So I think that like, obviously there has to be a certain base level of competence, but like on an indie film or something, like you want to make sure that you are ready to spend, again, a whole month with this person. I think that like in terms of breaking into that relationship, I guess just starting, whether it's as a PA or as a third or fourth grip or electric, I think just like getting to know those people who would hire you, and it's hard to say just go and work for free, because that's not, but I mean, like,
there's a certain level of sacrifice at the beginning, though.
Yeah, you have to, I guess it's an industry based on relationships. So if you don't have a natural into those relationships through school or I guess coming with some kind of past from those people, the techs or the camera team or whoever, I guess, just being in contact with those people and being willing to, kind of put in the time. I mean, we all, like, whether it's a short or a music video or whatever, like, there's always going to be some kind of project where someone's looking for, like, okay, like, we just need someone to set up a couple light mats or something, and can you plug something in? Great. Like, we'll get you to kind of come out and do this thing. And I guess it's just like a way to, if not like show off your skills, it's a way to show that you're someone who can learn and is curious, and also someone who you can spend a day with. Because if you come out and you're playing on your phone or your skateboard finger thing or whatever, like, it's not someone who you like. Yes, we're all like putting in the time for something creative, and it's not going to pay us a lot of money, even if we're getting paid anything. But just showing that you're interested in learning, I think, is a big part.
And yes, and just being focused. If you're there to do a thing, just be invested. Gayle, you're a current board member of BIPOC TV and Film, which is a fantastic organization. You've done so much work in that space to make sure crews everywhere are representational. How do you build your crew? What's important to you?
I think I'm fortunate enough to work in Toronto, which is a great place to have like a huge roster of folks I like working with, you know, so if one person's busy because they're so good at their job, I have some other people to hire as well. But I think usually when I reach out to crew to hire them, I try to tell them about the project as much as possible. I'm not the type of DP that's like, hey, are you free for 2 months? Here's the rate. Like, you know, I want them to care about the project, because come hour 14 for us, you know, Moran is directing, I'm DPing, and we're out of ideas. Well,
oh my God, have we ever gone that long?
Yeah.
We won't be working.
You know, all you have is your crew, right? There's the ones that's going to rejuvenate you. They're going to, you know, make you excited about the project again. They might have great pitches, and so allowing them to, one, care about the project, but also have the agency to share their ideas is a great, you know, workplace to go to. And then in terms of, like, I guess what I look for when I'm hiring people is that passion I think Rico spoke to, that curiosity. I think when you're first starting out, like, being honest and accountable is so important. That'll go such a long way. Like, listen, we all make mistakes. I still do every day. But what's important is owning up to that. And so if you know, drop a lens, which is everyone's nightmare, please tell your head of department, you know, because, you know, it happens. Things happen. It's okay. And we're all there to support each other. So, you know, making sure that is the sort of vibe on set is important to me. I'm pretty protective of my crew. So, of course, safety above all. So, that's sort of
okay when you don't know. Being okay with asking questions when you don't know too, I think, important.
Exactly. And tech decks, I think, was this skateboard thing that you were referencing.
Or you drive.
Keep your tech decks at home.
Or you drive the Black Walk panel van into the chapters in the building below us at one point.
Reference.
Sammy, same sort of question, but just can you talk a little bit about mentorship as well with your crew? We have Ozzy Q here, who did Better Be Home Soon for George Canyon, and he was a director that you mentored on that project. How do you approach leveling people up?
I mean, that was fun, right? That was the church and the car crash with the kid, and that was a crazy day. It was with all the candles at the end with the performance. Yeah, 1,000 candles.
I almost wrecked a jib arm because you let me operate it. Don't
yeah,
ever do
and
that
then
again.
Warren got. I mean, I think it's important. I think it's important to lift people up. I think it's important to be, you know, to care about your crew. I think it's important to hire people who can do the job, but also, you know, are that you can grow with, that you can also help grow. Like, I've worked with like many. I definitely have my favorite people, and some of the people that I still work with now, like, were kind of with me when, like, I needed, you know, extra help, and people who go the extra mile, and you know, a few of them I was able to even bring into the union and show my appreciation and support them and push them off onto other jobs. And, you know, now I regret it because they're not always available for me when I need them.
Yeah, when they're good, you can't get them back.
And that's life. And but I think, you know, being, you know, kind, being generous with your information, I think not being the person who just tells people what to do. I think one of the things that I generally like to do as much as possible is tell people why I want them to do something a certain way. Like, if I'm being specific, I think one of the things that I've learned over time is to not micromanage. I think at the beginning, I think definitely the micromanaging was something that I did out of insecurity. I think maybe we all go through periods like that. Like, I wasn't always confident. You go through periods where, like, you're doing well, but you still feel like an imposter. And then you realize that, like, your crew are your allies more than anything, and then you start to treat them more as collaborators. I think when you get past that, and then you create an environment that almost starts to feel like a family, especially when you're working with them for months at a time. I mean, you know, and you know, and now I'm lucky enough to know enough people that, like, I know lots of people from who like to do very different things. I know people who like to do short form work specifically, and, you know, you might be able to pull them along and to do something long form or whatever. And so I know the people that are going to want to be along for this journey versus that journey. And I think mentorship is just about, and then encouraging them to go buy that Steadicam, that second AC who wants to like go for it, or, giving them time on set to like experiment or operate the camera or do things like that. Like it's a daily thing. It's the little things that, and I've been doing it long enough that I've seen the PA go to directing, or the trainee go to DPing or camera operating and big shows, and it's really,
Fraser Brown.
really, yeah, or someone like Matt Cree, or Nigel Doucette, or it's a really, and it's a great thing to see that in the industry. Again, it's what Brendan was saying earlier. It's best when everybody's being supportive of each other.
Thank you, Sammy. Brendan, anything to add?
I also love Fraser Brown.
Prince of Darkness. I'm going to ask the senior colorist from Company Company 3. I can't read. Company 3, David Muscat, to come up. He's color graded Letterkenny, Shoresy, Condor, Kim's Convenience, Bria Mac, Gets Life, and CFF's 2020 movie, The Cuban. David, thanks for coming to see us today. We wanted to bring up a colorist, someone that basically takes the images that our directors of photography create, and then you elevate, reinvent. Can you just describe what you do with these images?
I can try.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always a little hard to describe without showing. It's a little bit of the black
Well, that's the
art.
cheers and chats part.
Yeah.
We're just chatting.
So, yeah, color grading is a really powerful tool.
Can you hold the mic a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Color grading is a really powerful tool. We're adjusting color and contrast. We're trying to achieve a specific look and convey a specific emotion, ultimately to help tell the story of the filmmakers. And that comes from the DPs. It's the DP's vision, it's the director's vision. They come in, they tell you what they're looking for, and it's your job to make it look like that.
And you're basically taking a raw image from their cameras, now digital cameras, and you can affect everything, right? Like,
yeah, we can do a lot. It's kind of like Photoshop at 24 frames a second.
Right.
We can really do a lot.
now you can track things. You can do a little
we
soft
can
focus
do,
skin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can do like beauty fixes if you get into that sort of stuff.
Paint outs.
Kind of do some like visual effect-y kind of stuff. You can do sky replacements. But really the meat and potatoes of it is getting all the shots to match, to look like they're shot at the same time, by the same camera, at the same place, which is kind of the unglamorous part, but it's also it's the hardest part, and it's the most important part. Because if it doesn't look the same, then the viewer will be taken out of it. They'll notice that something pops. This angle doesn't match that angle, or if they start shooting something. If they start shooting something at 9 in the morning and it's outside, and then you finish shooting at 6 p.m. Well, the
inevitably
light is very different, and I mean, they do an excellent job, but you'll still see the difference in quality.
Gayle, you and David worked on Bria Mac. Can you describe for everybody what the actual process is with working with a colorist?
Well, Dave is awesome. He's great. He's a really fantastic colorist. I mean, specifically with Bria Mac, for the folks who haven't seen it, I mean, it's certainly sort of like Broad City meets That's So Raven, and that we have our sort of main story, which is more grounded, but then we had a lot of fun with what we called fantasy departures. So it's very referential, and I think had it had been a different colorist, maybe it wouldn't have looked as good as it did, because I think sometimes when you're doing parodies, you want it to look as bad as that parody, but how do you still make bad look good? And I think you're very good at trusting the process and the vision, and but also executing it. So I think those are the things I look for in a colorist, and I think exactly what Dave had described, the boring part is like the balancing of everything, and you hope that process goes by really quickly, because then then you can be creative and start playing around with different looks for the show. So yeah, that was a little bit of my experience.
Do you give David references or a lookbook, or
Yeah.
do you and Sasha discuss that?
Yeah, so very early on, when you're being interviewed, you kind of put like a mood board together, and so I still reuse those images even in color. But once you start shooting, sometimes things change, and I think we departed a little bit from our original look. But yeah, certainly I was sending references to Dave and making sure that we're on the same page, and then we'd sit in the suite and make sure that it's still in alignment, because I think because we had these different sort of looks, it's also that consistency, so it doesn't feel super jarring, and we're easing viewers into it. So yeah, certainly reference images.
Yeah, and that's something I ask for all the time too. That's one of the questions I ask for at first. Like, are there any other movies or TV shows that you can reference that look like that? Do you have something from your past work that you want it to look similar to? And then once you get in the room, especially if you have multiple people, then I'm very much a collaborator, and I'll always give my opinion. And I'll always say, like, it's obviously not my show, but this is, I think,
Well, it's your show in the suite.
I'm like, I think this looks cool. Do you like this? And then you can just show some options. And if they like it, then they'll go with it. If they don't like it, then they'll stick with what they had, or maybe you meet somewhere in the middle. But yeah, we have lots of tricks up our sleeves, and it's kind of like, not everybody speaks the same language either. Like, some people come in and, especially directors, they'll come in and they'll be like, I just want this to feel gritty. Like, okay, well, what is that? So then, you have to kind of know, I want it to be gritty, or I want it to be creamy.
Crush the blacks, cyan and the whites.
Yeah, so you're kind of really taking what they're envisioning and then trying to make it a reality on the screen. Yeah.
And it's phenomenal what you can do now in these color grading suites, especially at Company 3, where, like you're talking, racing against the clock, it's pitch black out. Sammy, we shot the scene knowing that you could push it a little bit to get the sky back and to save it in the color. Any anecdotes about color grading from anyone else? Nothing? I mean, when we shot on film, we would literally take the film out in the colors when we were coloring it, and like do everything to it to just deform it and transform it and flash the camera and everything. And now it's all digital. Can't do that anymore. Questions from the audience. Do we have any questions? Yes, Sean Gerard. Yes, DPs, there's usually only one, sometimes there's two if you have the budget. But how do you talk amongst yourselves to learn more?
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting kind of territory too, because you're one of one, and you're likely in competition with the other people who you would be talking to about this. But I think, I guess, like, and the way I learned so much stuff is, I think, because of, I don't know, I guess a new spirit of sharing with the internet and digital cinema being like accessible does kind of, open up the spirit to be able to share these things with your peers. And I think, I mean, for me, coming up as an AC, I'm still good friends with a lot of the DPs I worked with, and I guess just having that kind of dialogue still going on, it has been really, really lovely. And I guess, like, also the agency I'm with, they have a Christmas party, and we always get together and just able to kind of like debrief on the year through that kind of get together with people who, you haven't seen for a year or a couple of years or something. also, yeah, I guess just like spent a lot of time reading American Cinematographer magazine, seeing all the kind of breakdowns and techie stuff there has been a great resource.
And now there's IG, Instagram,
Yes.
Cinematographer. Gayle, how do you foster your community?
So twofold. I think my sort of advocacy work through nonprofit spaces like BIPOC TV and Film really has connected me with so many amazing DPs. Also doing a bunch of mentorships as well. In fact, there's so much. Sorry, Christian, I'm going to put you on the spot. Christian just emailed me like yesterday or 2 days ago, for an internship. And going back to your earlier question about like how do you first get into the industry, it's like writing a letter or sending that email. And so just trying, attempting. So, but yeah, I love connecting with other DPs, even if they're emerging or they have no idea, if they've never touched a camera before, they're still DPs in my mind. So that's sort of a way I do it. But also panels like this, I was just reflecting on I've been following all these people's work for so long. I'm like, this is probably only second time I've seen you folks in person, and it's kind of wild. And I don't, of course, being a DP can be a little isolating when you're on a big show, but it doesn't have to be. I would love to pick any of these people's brains and see how they would light a scene, because I know it's totally different from me. And I think when you first start, there might be an instinct for that competitive nature, but I know I'm not suited for every job. That's fine. I don't want to do every job. And so once you kind of let that go, I think that will really open you up to like making meaningful connections with other filmmakers and DPs.
Sammy or Brendan, can one of you talk about the CSC and just the community that,
I was actually just about to mention that, which is like it's designed exactly for that reason, as a society that brings people together to have like that kind of camaraderie and community. But like generally, cinematographers are like it's a really welcoming community. It's actually like it's a very sort of like open place where people are willing to talk about what they did and how they did it. And it's not, people are not protective of their process, or of like, I remember like very early on in the days of digital when it was like mysterious and we didn't know what was going on, and like people like the Viper had just come out and Fincher was shooting these commercials on the Viper, and I was like, I saw a short film that Claudio Miranda shot that I just couldn't understand what was going on. It was unlike, and
we shot on PAL P2.
We did yeah, we did. Anyway, we're trying to figure out like what this new format was. He just had his like on his website, like ClaudioMiranda.com, he had like an email address, and I just sent him and said like, what is going on here? How did you shoot this? And he wrote me back like, those were 10Ks coming through the window, and I put it at 400 ISO. We have to use this card to convert it from green to. It was like a complete technical breakdown of everything he did, and he was just like, yeah, no problem. I like talking about it. I was like, I was pretty young at the time when that happened, and it was like, oh, I see. That's how it works. We all just share and everything, and I think that everyone who's a cinematographer has had that experience with somebody who they respected at some point and is like willing to pass that along. And consequently, like, it is a really great tight community, and it's very welcoming. The other thing I would say though is television, like the greatest thing about the modern innovation of bigger budget TV with 2 DPs is like you actually do get to collaborate with someone like on a real professional level. Yeah. And it is like, that is my favorite thing about TV. I otherwise would rather shoot almost anything else, but for that one thing, television is like actually like kind of one of my favorite places to work, because when you have people who you like working with and whose work you respect and whose like ideas you want to share, it's like really, really, really fun that you get to like talk like very practically and seriously about what are we going to do with this police station?
How do you keep a cohesive
windows
look?
And like how we, yeah. And like, and when you're designing stages, like, the first time I ever alternated was with Boris. He brought me into Titans, and we've worked together a bunch since then. But like, there are lots of people who I've worked with since then as well, who I've like either knew before or become friends with since then. And he was very generous. So he's like, look, I'm starting the show, but you're going to come in and start prep with me, and we're going to figure this out together. And like, I don't know how we're going to, what do you think? He's like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? I was like, I think that's a great idea. That exchange of information is like the most fun thing. If you have an opportunity to do a show where you alternate, it is invaluable. And those relationships also were like, become really meaningful.
Any other questions? Yes.
My name's Gayle, and I'm an actress, and it's been really insightful to hear everything that's behind the scenes. I was wondering, is there anything that you would like the actors would understand more by doing on set, anything that you wish we understood more?
Kayla, who's a fabulous actress, is wondering if there's something from your side, from the DP side, that actors could do to help out what you do. Anybody want to take that question?
I mean, I think as a very minor thing, and remembering my days as an AC, moving rapidly front and back is most people's nightmare. Side to side, great. Yeah. Yeah. That's probably not a great answer, but that is one thing.
To what you're saying though, because that is like a single example of a thing it's like a broader, like I think being technically aware is important. It's not, I mean, not necessarily moving back, but just like there are actors who are brilliant performers who aren't technical, and there are actors who are technical who aren't great performers. But like if you're a good performer and you're, if your character work is solid, then it's also good to understand like the technical side of acting and be able to hit marks and be able to understand like why people are doing what they're doing. And you work with some people who are like so precise that not everyone's like that, and it doesn't mean they're a better actor or a worse actor, but if you have both, then it's like, it just means, practically what it means is that like, they won't have to throw away your best take because it wasn't technically perfect. You might do something great, but if you move and aren't aware and you leave the frame or are out of focus because of being sort of like technically, then you could lose the best moment of your performance.
It could be like lens sizes as well, just being aware of like, are we in a close-up, are we in a wide, and like what does a wide mean, like how are we seeing your feet, and then again, yeah, like are you doing big moves in a close-up and then again it's like unusable because it doesn't match with the rest of the scene or something.
And I'll just quickly add, which is, one, that's a great question. I think starting with that is really important. I feel like maybe this is more of a crew note, but I feel like there used to be this idea where like when the cast arrives, nobody makes eye contact with them. They're the stars of the show. And so, and I feel like that alienates actors. You're just as important as the crew and vice versa. So, I think even just that openness to like connect with the crew and say hi to folks and know their names goes a long way. So, yeah.
Just little things technically where just finding the camera, because right now if Brendan's the camera, he can't see me, but if I come out here, we grab each other, and it's little things like that really help out. Maybe not so much the DP, but the camera team, the operators and the ACs for sure. Lauren Vandenbroek.
I've worked for many years as a photographer and also as an actor, and through both of those mindsets, I have so much respect for what you do, which is why when I've been asked in more recent years if I would consider DPing, I've just said no, because it has felt like such a wild leap to me. But hearing a lot of your stories, I realized that is not necessarily true. So I was just curious if you have any advice on like a specific important step to maybe bridge that gap from photographer.
LV of LV Imagery has a great question, and maybe this is a good last question. Do you all have some wisdom or something to advice to give someone that's considering making the leap to be a DP to go off and do that?
I feel like in this specific case, like it's just knowing that your past lives or these journeys you've been on all amount to being a DP. They're not separate from your journey. So I think a lot of folks kind of get lost in that. And the exciting thing about film is that you can get in whenever. I know folks who are accountants for years and now they're amazing writers. Like, so it is just to do that leap. But maybe Rico wants to add about the specific photography background. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like remembering, because so often we're on a schedule too, and I guess remembering that all the images have to work together, and it's not just about getting hung up on making something beautiful, but one, it has to work with the other angles, and two, it has to work for the story. So I think that's something. I feel like looking at references of old films, even like I don't know, some of the kind of like thrillers of the 70s. It's like there's not always like it's not such a like screenshotable film. And I think a lot of that is because you're not just trying to make like Instagram reel or like carousel friendly images. You want to make a film that works together and works well for the mood of the scenes. So I think that that's something, I guess just trying to kind of like let go of the like pure beauty of it, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Sammy, Brennan? Yep, Brennan?
I think all this sort of like technical and creative advice you're going to get is less. That's all stuff you'll figure out as you go, and you might disagree with all of us. I think the only thing is just go and do it. Just like, yeah, I think it's really about just going and trying it, and you'll learn really quickly what you like and don't like, and what works for you and doesn't work. And it's really highly subjective. There's not like, I have lots of rules that like I stick to sometimes, and sometimes I throw out, and I see other people like who don't follow my rules, and I think, oh, that's brilliant work. I would never do it that way, but it's gorgeous and it works really well for that film. All of these things are like how we each separately navigate our own projects, but like it's a creative venture. I think just go start doing it. The more you do it, and no one ever judges anybody for their first project. By the way, you can go and make as many mistakes as you want and make it even if it's like
ham and cheese.
Brilliant
we still got to make stuff after that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to just go and start shooting. And I was saying earlier about film, like that there was that barrier to entrance, but that made it like, on one hand, like protected your job, but also made it hard to get in. That doesn't exist anymore. You can go and make a film like tonight.
Let's do it.
You actually can. You can actually like, people are making films on all sorts of formats that you can actually just go and do it now in a way you never could before. And I think like that is like it gives you incredible freedom to just go and try stuff and see if you even like it.
Sammy?
I thought that all summed it up. I mean, I would just say traditionally, film used to be a place where like it was sort of like an apprenticeship sort of system where like you had to learn how to expose film, you had to learn the mechanical stuff and things like that. So you would go out and you would start in the camera department, or you would go start out as working as with a belt and gripping. And I think that is still something that was very useful to me when I was coming up. Like I gravitated towards the lighting department because I figured out cameras. I would learn how to expose them and all that stuff. But then I would, the thing that was I really wanted to be good at, the thing that I thought that was the most mysterious was the lighting. So to make my living, I went and put up lights, and I'd be on set with and I learned, and I just watched a lot of people who are my friends now, who are my, now peers, and I would watch them and I would study them, and I would, go home and I would make notes about what they did, and that was a great way to do it. And then also, then I think like I made, I shot so many short films and little pieces for friends and whatever for free, and a lot of them sucked, and but like they were good enough that they were grateful, and I could get another job and keep going. But I looked, but I mean at the time, like I was having the experience and the education of my life, and I had a great time. So if it's something you really want to do, that first part where you're struggling is also incredibly rewarding and fun. So if it's something you really enjoy, even the beginning can be fun.
I think a friend of mine said to me early when I was starting to shoot that like it doesn't always matter what you're shooting. Every day on set is a good day, and you can learn something from every day on set, whether you're shooting, it doesn't matter what you're shooting. So you can always take something away from that day, and like maybe it's something that you learned not to do. And I think also for me, like having not gone to film school, I just like learned so much by watching a lot of films and like watching them obsessively again and again, or I found for myself, who was just often distracted easily by the story, I would mute it and then just watch like what works about the edit, what works about the coverage and the lighting. Yeah, that was helpful for me too.
Thank you. Dave Muscat, any final words from you in terms of pursuing it?
Yeah, pursuing it, same kind of thing. It used to be really hard to get into. You had to have, hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy gear. Now you can actually download DaVinci Resolve for free. It's a little limited. It doesn't do everything the full version does, but the full version is only $500. So yeah, the gear is there, the equipment is there. It's just learning how to do it. And there's no shortage of videos out there on YouTube on how to do it. But like everybody else, it's just putting in the hours and the years and figuring out how to do it and meeting the people and building relationships. And yeah, it's just starting somewhere.
Starting here.
Starting here.
I am going to have to wrap it. We do have a screening at 8 o'clock at Vifetta Greens.
8:30.
Home free, 8:30?
8:30.
Okay. Did you have one last question?
I just have one last question and a microphone.
Okay.
I'm also just curious for the indie filmmakers in the room, and are there any best tips or pieces of advice that you can give to how to approach working with a post house so we can work with a colorist like Dave? Is that something that's accessible at the indie level for a short budget?
Yes. He's not going to like my answer. Go for it.
Yeah, I think you should learn how to use Resolve and do it yourself. I mean, at the lowest, like when you're working on a small budget project, I do it myself. And even actually, when I work on a larger budget project, you know me, I come in with a pre-grade. Like I grade it myself, and then I take it in. I say like, I fucked up here, but I really like this. Can you make this look like that? And can you fix this? And can you? But it's still good to know how to do that. You can't properly. Like any job in film, if you understand the job and you can do it yourself, then you can better direct the people around you as to how you want it to look or how you want it to feel or what you're trying to get. Because if you don't understand the technical limitations, and you won't understand why you're not getting the place you want to be. So Resolve is free. It's really easy to learn, and it's a great thing to mess around with and learn how to use yourself. And when you have the right project and, either the resources or you feel like begging for favors and they feel generous, then you'll at least be like better equipped to speak to the people who are doing the work for you.
I think and if you can, projects that you're collaborating on or have friends or other contacts who are doing a color session, I think sitting in on a color session, I think the first time I did a color session as a DP, I think you're right, Brendan, being able to speak to those things that you need, whether by having done it yourself or just having that language, because it is such a specific way. Like you as the DP have to be somewhere in between the director saying, I want gritty, and I guess like knowing what's possible and knowing sometimes it's also, and it applies on set and in post, like I guess trying to find the note behind the note where they're like, I want this brighter. And you're like, do you actually want it brighter, or do you want to see their face more or something? Or like, I guess it's like, it's just such a specific way of communicating with everyone in that room. And it can be intimidating, especially on indie projects where, I mean, I did a short last year where we had, I think, 3 hours one morning to do like a 12-minute short. And I mean, really happy with how it ended up, but like we were able to get there because we all had experience and could kind of like speak the language. Exactly. And I think I guess also just being able to get really efficient with being that conduit between the director and the colorist too, just helps speed up that process.
Jen, was your question like in terms of how to get connected to a post house? Like, I mean, I don't want to speak for Dave, but I can speak about talking to rental houses maybe more. Like, you see their prices online, you're like, oh my God, I'll never, afford that. But I think, if you're approached a rental house or a colorist and you say, hey, here's a really important project to me. This is what it's about. Here are the comparisons. It might spark Dave's interest. Actually, it doesn't really, the amount maybe doesn't matter so much.
Do you want to speak to that, Dave?
But yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, like at Company 3, we do bigger movies, but we also do indie movies. And yeah, talk to James or talk to
James Fraser, man of Motown,
our salesperson. And yeah, they'll, if you're a passionate young filmmaker, they'll probably try to make something work for you.
James has always helped me many, many times. Thank you so. Yes, one last question.
Mainly DaVinci Resolve, truthfully. Yeah, it does a lot. You can edit in it. You can do like an offline edit, like a creative edit. You can do color. You can do audio mixing. You can do visual effects. You can do pretty much everything in it. They've really made it a one size fits all box. Yeah, and it's free. You can download it for free.
Free.
Yep, it's pretty amazing.
Dave, Brendan, Sammy, Gayle, Rico, thank you so much for your time today, the wisdom you showed. Thank you, Canadian Film Fest and Jen Pogue.
Oh, thank you, Warren Sonoda. Well, I don't know about you all, but after today, I sure feel lit, especially this panel. Thank you, everybody, and a special shout out to Company 3, who came on pretty last minute to support some really exciting initiatives that we have going on this week, including our Comedy Igniter showcase happening tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m., and our You Can Pitch competition happening Friday at 12:15. We have some very generous in-kind prize packs that some very lucky filmmakers will get to go home with after these special showcases. So please come and join us for those exciting
Thank you,
shows
xoTO.
tomorrow.